He's there. He's just hiding
So
out.
Jason, I'm starting the live stream now, so I
Okay.
guess whenever you're ready, you can take off.
All right. Appreciate it. All right. We will. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to Planning Commission. It's August 5th, 5:30. I want to remind anyone that's watching, if they want to make comments on any of the public comment items, that they can go to washingtoncity.org/meetings and make those comments at any time during this meeting until that item's closed, public hearing's closed. To begin the meeting, I will offer the invocation. Commissioner Henry will offer the Pledge of Allegiance after that. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be here tonight and discuss Washington City and the progress of it. We ask you to bless us that we'll be able to make good decisions and that will benefit the city in the future, and that we will be able to have active discussion and that we might be able to move forward on these items. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Would you follow me, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with freedom and
justice for all.
For all.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. We will move to item 1A, which is the approval of the agenda for August 5th. If there are no changes, I'd look for a motion on that.
This is Commissioner Hawley. I make a motion that we approve the agenda for August 5th.
I second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hawley and a second by Commissioner Henry. In favor, Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfu.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 2 is the approval of the minutes. If everyone's had a chance to review those, I wasn't here for the July 15th meeting, so I would entertain a motion on that or any discussion on any changes.
I would make a motion that we approve the minute for July 15th, 2020.
Commissioner Hanson, I second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Henry and a second by Commissioner Hanson. In favor, Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfu.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Declarations of abstentions or conflicts for this evening's meeting. See none, we'll move on to item 4A. This is a final plat, consideration and recommendation to City Council for the Paseos at Siena Hills, Phase 3. Final plat located at approximately Paseos Street and Grapevine Crossing Road. The applicant is Brennan Holdings.
Everybody see that okay?
Yes. Thank you.
As stated, the applicant is requesting approval of a final plat for the Paseos at Siena Hills Phase 3. This particular subdivision is proposing 51 lots. The area of coverage is 10.9 acres. The zoning at this location is the Siena Hills Planned Community Development, or Siena Hills PCD. The preliminary plat was approved back on August 8th of 2018. Staff has reviewed the request proposal, and the proposed final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat. Staff therefore recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for the Paseos at Siena Hills Phase 3 subdivision onto the City Council. That, of course, is with the findings subject to the conditions, and they are the standard 5 that we put for final plats. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that the commissioners might have for the Paseos Phase 3.
Any questions for Drew?
I'm having a little bit of problem reading the name of the street south of there.
On the south end, that's Grapevine Crossing.
Okay. All right, that makes sense now. I looked at it the other day and was wondering what was going on there. Okay.
It's Commissioner Hanson. I don't have anything.
Commissioner Hawley, I'm good.
I just have one question. This is Commissioner Lusso. Now, is this more vacation rental stuff or is this single family homes, Drew?
It's vacation rental. That's why you kind of notice over here on the left, side where I have my thing.
Yeah, I saw
allocated
the,
parking for the toys.
yeah.
But yeah, this is one of the vacation, designated areas up there in the Siena Hills up toward the water tank.
So, but it looks like these are all going to be freestanding. They're not going to be clusters like the other ones are. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? If not, I would entertain a motion on this.
I would make a motion that we recommend to the City Council the final plat approval for Siena or for I can't say it. Paseos at Siena Hills Phase 3 subdivision located at approximately, say it again, Drew.
Paseos.
Paseo Street and Grapevine Crossing. That will not come off my tongue.
Would you add with conditions and the existing conditions of staff?
Good. And with conditions and recommendation, let's see, conditions and findings as listed and conditions.
This is Commissioner Hawley. I'll second that motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Henry and a second from Commissioner Hawley. In favor, Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Move to item 4B. This is consideration recommendation to City Council for the Paseos at Siena Hills Phase 4 final plat located at approximately Grapevine Crossing Road and Plat Circle. Applicant is Brennan Holdings.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting approval of this final plat of the Paseos at Siena Hills Phase 4. This particular subdivision is proposing 10 lots on an area coverage of 3.84 acres. Sorry, I forgot to change the 3 in my report to a 4. So if you are following my report, it is Phase 4. Again, the zoning here at this location, just down the street from Phase 3, is of course the Siena Hills Planned Community Development, or Siena Hills PCD zoning. The preliminary plat again was approved back on August 8th of 2018. Staff reviewed the request, finds that the proposed final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat. Staff is then recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for the Paseos at Siena Hills Phase 4 subdivision onto the City Council. That's subject to the findings, condition, and the conditions, which are the standard 5 again. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have about Paseos Phase 4.
This is
Is this-
Commissioner Hawley. You said there are 10 lots and I see lot number 111 down there. That's a great, I can't see the square footage of that, Drew. That looks like a really big lot. What's their intent for that?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to zoom in down on that. Looks like it's 15,435
Yeah, and the rest of them are,
square feet.
the rest of them
So,
are 2,000 or 3,000.
yeah. Do we have any representatives from Brennan Holdings or from High Point Online with us, Steve?
I'm guessing no, since they didn't say anything.
Okay. So I can't answer that quite, Commissioner. Just it's a big lot.
Yeah, that
Oh.
just doesn't make any sense with the rest of those properties.
Well, sometimes what they'll do with these is they'll make one very big home, you know, for a bigger, like family reunion type things. But I hope they put a sprinkling system in it because
Yeah,
you're really only allowed 10 occupants if you don't have a sprinkling system in a vacation rental. So,
yeah. I just wonder if it's going to be a residence or like an amenity, a clubhouse or something. Would that?
no, it wouldn't be that because they usually put that on there that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because it's labeled as private, you know, with the legend. Because the amenity, like a clubhouse, would be in common area
Yeah.
or limited common, but this is private ownership.
I also noticed, Drew, there's not any toy parking area in this particular
Well,
phase.
yeah, it's fine. I mean, this one's just down the street. You can see we kind of made this, I don't have it on here showing you, but generally what we did during the preliminary plat stage is just made sure that the whole development had the sufficient extra parking and toy parking. So
Remembered it, but I wasn't sure.
Can you look at the hatching? Let's see.
here, I'll bring it over here.
Oh, so it's unirrigated. So it's unirrigated common space. Okay.
Yeah, they probably put that on there because the Water Conservancy may have them, you know, they probably made them label that specifically just for their pricing on their.
Okay. I noticed there's an additional one, and that's probably just the reason why, because
That's what it is, yeah.
they're both common area. One's limited common, one's common area, and then one's common area unirrigated. Okay.
Yeah, there's another common area up behind 106 and 107 has the same graphic.
That's probably those natural places that are left as part of the PCD approval.
Yeah.
And so they didn't want to be hit with the impact fee through Water Conservancy. So it's probably going to be natural terrain.
Right. That makes sense.
So Drew, I'm just curious, why are these guys going to single standoff units as opposed to all the traditional stuff that they've had where they've been row, townhomes? Is this the same? Is this the same development that's like down where Ivory and Ladera? Is this the same developers?
It'll probably pretty much be. Ladera sold out pretty quick.
Right.
That is, people are looking for standalone homes,
Right.
not townhomes. So that market, I think, is what they're still trying to appease that one.
Okay. Good. I'm personally, I'm glad. I'd rather see this product than the other product personally, but that's neither here nor there.
Drew, this is Commissioner Hanson. I had a similar question to Commissioner Hawley on that lot 111. Because there's not a representative on the phone to answer that question, I personally want to know if the commissioners are comfortable adding a condition on there that there's an explanation to City Council of why that's there and what the intent of it is. Because if we're going to, I almost don't want to approve it because I'd like to know what it is, even though there's probably a great explanation. Without having one, that's an awfully big lot in the middle of some small ones. Even though there's probably a good reason for it, we just don't know what it is.
Commissioner Hanson, this is Commissioner Hawley. Yes, I was actually contemplating making the motion to approve this and send it on to City Council and add that condition that they come back and tell us what their plan is for that lot.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I agree with you.
Drew, you're probably exactly right, Drew, that maybe they're going to build something like that with a bigger multi-family unit in there for vacation rentals. But just think if they didn't, it'd look awfully weird having a 15,000 square foot lot / house built on it in the middle of that. I don't know why they would, but without an explanation, there really isn't any way for us to know.
Yeah, feel free to have, put that on there. They can just send that in and I can read it in the report.
Okay.
Because what happens with final plats on City Council is they go to what's called a consent item. So I don't even read a report, but because it just goes straight in. So
It showed that in the preliminary plat, right?
yeah, they probably did, and we didn't talk about it at that point.
I just want City Council to look at it. I mean, when I was reading the paperwork when it first came to us, our packet, that's the first thing I noticed of anything. I was like, what is that? So just approving it without asking another question of what's that intended for feels a little funny.
No, that's fine. I agree. I bet.
Do we want to table it?
I don't think, I think if we just put condition, approve it with the condition that they have to label that lot. I think.
Will the City Council see that though, Drew? You said no.
Well, not unless I bring it to their attention during that time, which I could probably do that.
I'd appreciate that if we could at least have those gentlemen know what their plan is for that lot. I would like to know, but I would trust you to tell the City Council that we all shared the same concern, and rather than table it, we're counting on you and the City Council to find out what's going on there.
Okay, I don't have a problem doing that.
Thank you, sir.
A lot of these, the City Council read this right down to the sentence, so it'll be there.
All right.
No other questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion on this.
This is Commissioner Hanson. I'll make a motion that we recommend for approval to City Council item 4B, final plat approval for the Paseos at Siena Hills, Phase 4 subdivision located approximately Grapevine Crossing and Plat Circle. Brennan Holdings, subject to the conditions and findings listed on the staff report, with one additional condition being attached of number 6, that the developer provides some sort of an explanation on the expected use of lot 111 to make sure that it conforms and with the subdivision itself. It just seemed a little odd, the size of the lot, and we didn't have an explanation of what it was.
Second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson and a second by Commissioner Fitzunfu. In favor, Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzunfu,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 5A. This is a conditional use permit. This is a public hearing to consider approval of a conditional use permit C-20-05 for a motor vehicle impound yard business located at 1385 East Hillcrest Drive, and the applicant is Jeremy Johnson.
I'm Desmond. I am filling in today. I am the business manager. He is currently out on a call, but we definitely want to make sure that all questions are answered and everything is taken care of.
Okay, great, thanks. we'll let staff report, and if you have anything to add, would invite you after that. And if not, we might have some questions for you too.
The applicant requests an approval of a conditional use permit to establish a motor vehicle impound yard. Facility will be located, as we've stated, 385 East Hillcrest Drive, which is lot 16. You can see there on the exhibit. The property is zoned heavy industrial, which is I-2, with motor vehicle impound yards only allowed in this zoning district, but only again through a conditional use permit approval. The surrounding zoning is I-2 to the east and west and south. And then there is open space to the north, which is BLM property. Currently, the lot in question is partially fenced off with a shared building and associated parking as required by the city code. One of the main reasons these types of uses are run through the CUP process is the nature of the business, mostly repossessions, and thus can be quite controversial at times. Impound yards are required to be licensed through the state of Utah. They also are required that all vehicles brought into the premise will have to be stored behind 6-foot fence under lock and key. Now, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve C-20-05, allowing for the motor vehicle impound yard to be located at 1385 East Hillcrest, as shown on your exhibit, with the findings and conditions as outlined. Now, again, I'm just going to point out 2 of them, of the conditions. There's just 5, but 2 of the important ones are number 4 and number 5, which I'm going to read. Number 4, all storage of operable vehicles will be allowed within the chain link fence area in the rear yard area. No storing of anything in the side yard area where the gate is located. If non-operable vehicles are to be stored on the property, they will be required to be stored within the building warehouse area. And number 5, before any occupancy, or in this case, the use of this impound yard can take place, a copy of the approved issued state license for impound yards must be delivered to the Community Development Department offices, and said license will be required to be maintained and kept current at all times of business operation. So those are the 2 main conditions. The others are fairly simple, just kind of standard stuff that we'd put on most CUPs. So I'll be glad to answer any questions before you talk to the applicant if there's anything you need me to address for you.
This is Commissioner Hanson. Drew, I had a question that in looking at the picture in our exhibit on the screen, with what you just said, I believe I understood it as it should have been understood, but I think what we're trying to avoid is what it looks like with their neighboring unit. Is that correct? With just cars all in the front, on the side, in the back? We're trying to make it to where all these impounded cars will only be behind that fence on the left. Is that right?
That is correct.
Is there any reason to believe there would be cars parked out front because of this, like there is on their neighboring property?
No, well, he'd lose his state license for one thing.
All right.
On impound yards, they're supposed to be secured behind a fence under lock and key.
Okay.
So yeah, we won't have what you see here, which this one next door, I'm not real happy with.
Yeah.
Is-
It's funny. I talked to him yesterday. I said, hey, you know, this is coming to the Planning Commission, your neighbor. I want to know if you thought anything of it, if you had anything to say. And he said, no, I wish I had more room too. But I didn't realize it looked like this because I couldn't see it from the air. I was standing there, but that's pretty, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, the one to the right looks like what most mechanic shops end up being.
Yeah.
They just stuff cars everywhere. You can see out here in the parking area.
Yeah.
This is so unacceptable, you know, because
Yeah.
that's required parking and they've double parked.
Yeah.
And so, but this particular business, which will be on this left-hand side, state law requires them to be behind fence, lock and keyed. So
Okay.
that's why we won't have anything out here other than just, you know, the people that run the business or anybody that would come to be picking up a car if they did so there.
I have 2 additional questions, and it might be for the developer as opposed, or the applicant as opposed to you, Drew, but I'm going to ask just, one might be for you. Is there a maximum amount of time that a car can be kept behind that gate according to state law?
I don't know, and I don't know if Applicant, are you there? Do you know the answer to that?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Okay.
The maximum allowable time is, that depends on the tax commission, but it's normally 30 days. However, you can hold them longer. They can be held longer if they are out of state. They can be up to 3 months.
Okay. And you're okay with that? It probably doesn't happen very often then, I would expect. Is that right?
No, it's very, very rare. So, if you guys, there's another towing company up on lot 15. It's SG3. I've spoke with that gentleman a lot, and him and I are kind of on the same page. Impound yards don't need to look the way they look. So he gets all his paperwork done and is able to rotate through his lot every 30 days. So any cars that he gets in that nobody comes and picks up, within 30 days, he's normally sending off his paperwork. A week later, he gets the title, and he's either scrapping it or selling it.
Okay.
So, and that's, I really like what he's done with his lot and how he runs his impound yard. And that is exactly how I want to run mine.
Okay. And my last question, Drew, this really doesn't have too much to do with the applicant, or at least my opinion of the application. But when I was leaving there yesterday, I was parked right above the LO on lot 16. And I backed out and I turned right, not to the street, about where your pencil's at. And I started to drive south. And I almost drove off of that ledge right there. And I thought, I'm not the dumbest guy in the world, but I wonder if that's a problem for everybody there, because it just stair steps down as you go more east. And I was wondering, I would assume the city's aware of that. And I can't imagine maybe I am the only one that's ever thought that's just a roadway. Because when I was sitting there driving, it looked like that's where the road went. There's no indication that there's about a 3 or 4 foot drop in between each of the lot buildings. Maybe
I see. You're talking about over here.
Yes, I almost drove off of that. And again, I'll just say I'm the dumbest driver in the world, but as you go down each of those buildings, there is no indication. There's not a curve. There's not a bump. It's just literally you'll drive 4 feet off if you're not paying attention. I just wondered if that's something that the city knows about, if there's been a problem in the past of cars driving off of those things, because it's with every lot.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm kind of used to it. I personally probably think I wish the developer would have put some sort, at least a 3 foot chain link fence along there.
Yeah.
But he didn't. You know, I think what it's going to take is each one of these, someone's going to come off. I guarantee it.
It was going to be
on
me.
one of these at some time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious though. Jeremy, is that you talking on the phone? You said you're with us?
Yes, I am with you guys. Yes, sir. I'm absolutely listening.
Okay. Now you're talking about your neighbor in lot 15 has an impound yard?
Yes, sir.
I'm kind of curious because he's not come before this planning commission. So thank you for turning him in to me.
Was not my intentions. As far as I know, he's been there because we had just talked Friday about a conditional use permit, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like I had to do the same thing," and he's been there for, I believe he said, a year.
Yeah, I think those on the commission who have been here longer than that, I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to go back and check, but I don't think, unless he got one at another location and moved here, but I'm going to have to look into that though. So,
hey, Jeremy, this is Commissioner Hanson. Have you ever had somebody drive off of that on the east side of your property?
You know, I've only been in this piece of property for 2.5, maybe 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So not to say that it couldn't happen, because it absolutely could. I definitely see what you're saying there.
And it's, again, this isn't a merit of your application. It was just the first time I had been there, and I literally, if I wouldn't have, I could have absolutely driven off of that. just not realizing that it looked like the road from where I'm standing. Anyway, doesn't matter if the application, but I just wanted to bring it up, Drew, see if the city knew about it.
Yeah, no, I know the drop-offs, and again, yeah, we'll look into just trying to maybe see if each one of these people might even put up, you know, a triangle sign, you know, those hazard type things, just put them on a post, at least right through the driving area to help maybe bring attention. So not a bad idea.
Okay.
So this is Commissioner Musso. I have a question real quick. So lot 16, is that building housed in two different businesses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much right down the middle, about where the 1 of the 16 is.
Okay.
You can see the peak of the roof right there.
Right.
Yeah, it's got a 2-hour separation wall there in between the two sides.
Okay, so now the question I have is that realistically, I mean, how many cars can he park behind that building? I mean, if he could put 3 cars behind that building, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, but he has this whole warehouse as well. So,
Okay. So he can house, okay, I know you said non-running buildings have to be inside the warehouse.
Yeah.
So now is that whole building 1,700 square feet? Or is just his half 1,700 square feet?
His half.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the building's about 3,500 square feet.
Okay, so that's the equivalent of about 6 or maybe up to 8 cars total then.
Yeah, you're probably looking, I mean, depending on size, anywhere from 8 to 11, 12. If they're smaller ones, you could probably fit 4 of them in the back, maybe 5. And then
Put them in
probably
like
fit 6 inside.
Yeah, okay. It just didn't seem like a very big area as for an impound lot. At least when I picture an impound lot, I'm thinking it's got, 15, 20 cars around it, but maybe not.
I had the same thought when this came before us, so.
This Commissioner Hanson, I had the same thought, and I was actually pleasantly surprised and really liked the look of the building, knowing that everything would be behind the fence and somebody could operate a business as he's asking without it being an eyesore, so to speak. I actually thought it looked really good. So if you see it, you would know what I was talking about.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Hawley. I don't want to jump on, but I had the same thought. How many cars is he going to store, especially when he can't store in the driveway behind the gate? My concern is that it's going to look like the one next door, which is a mess. I'm really glad I don't have to look at it. I'd be up in arms every day, but I hope that the number of cars that he can store looks like maybe 10 or 12 total. I hope you can make a living, Jeremy. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. That's about what we figured was about 10 to 12 vehicles total. And we just mainly need the impound yard for police rotation. That's the biggest reason why we need an impound yard. So with about 40 of us about 40 of us going to be on police rotation, I think we'll be pretty good there.
Jeremy, did you just say there's 40 impound?
40?
There's about 40 tow truck companies on rotation right now.
Wow.
Good luck, Jeremy.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions for staff or for the applicant? Any discussion amongst the commission on this?
No, I just share Commissioner Hanson's concern. I've been up in that area as well, and I had to stop and make sure I wasn't going to drive off something. So
it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, but when you're there and you see it, you're going to go, "Oh wow, okay, yeah, you're right." It just looks like a continuous road that goes down.
It's just going to take one person with a little distraction, or they push on the gas instead of the brake. We've all heard of instances like that, and a disaster in the making Jason, I agree with you. If there's somebody in the adjacent parking lot and you come flying off there and hit somebody, it's just, I think, Drew, you're onto something with at least a hazard sign. Get the developer to do something about that. If we can go back retroactive.
In looking at this with my own eyes, I actually thought it was a good thing to do there. As long as it's behind the fence and all that, it'll be a good business that's operating with a nice, it looks really nice. I know that his neighbor looks terrible and it was like that yesterday, but because of the volume of cars, but this will look actually like, it's almost like nobody's operating there. The building is really nice. It looks nice from the road.
Yeah, they've done a good job up there.
And that is how, I don't want to bring up my neighbor again, but SG3 up on lot 15, if you look at lot 15, where there's vehicles in and it's more of a triangle, his property always looks clean, always looks nice, always looks top notch. And that is how I want mine to look.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I didn't even notice his, which is exactly what I'm saying. Yes, that's what we want, is to not notice it.
Yeah. So I do have a question for the commission. If we take and we put the white slats in the chain link fence, then would we be able to use that alleyway as long as it can't be seen from the main road?
This is Commissioner Hanson. If you're asking us collectively, I'm sure the others have comments, but for me, I would be opposed to something like that if yours was the only fence that had it on it.
Okay.
It wouldn't look consistent.
Yep, and that's why I was asking, is just want to probably stick with uniformity.
What does the state say about that?
The state specifically states they don't, there's nothing there other than it's got to be a chain link fence, 6 foot tall, with 3 strands of barbed wire or razor wire. And I don't like the razor wire. I think the razor wire looks trashy when you get it up.
Yeah. My opinion is one of the 5 is that I would prefer not to have that there.
Okay.
Unless you could convince everybody on that street to do the same.
Okay. And we're fine without it. I thought I would ask while we were talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a public hearing. Do we have any comments on this item?
We do have one public comment. It is from Adam Corley. It looks like he does live outside the city limits. And his comment is, I am okay with the motor vehicle impound yard in this location as long as there is a requirement for a privacy fence all around the yard and that none of the impound vehicles are allowed to be stored outside of that privacy fence. The concern is with aesthetics of the White Sage Industrial Park.
Okay, and that, I think we've answered that. I think that's in the conditions already, and the state is requiring that as well. So, I think we're good in that comment.
Jason?
Yeah.
For Drew, when you read those requirements on the fenced yard and stuff, did it say you couldn't park in the driveway?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that answers the question. But I don't know how wide the driveway is and how much he needs to get the car out of there.
Well, that's why I didn't want anything parked in there.
Okay.
Well, based on the look of the other side, it appears that it's not wide enough to have 2 cars pass there.
My opinion too, and the way Drew read that, I thought I understood there wasn't to be any cars.
And I think that's how I understood it as well.
Okay.
With that one comment, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Henry and a second by Commissioner Hawley to close the public hearing. In favor, Commissioner Henry,
Aye.
Mr. Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfu,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Public hearings closed unanimously. Further discussion on this and or a motion?
I'll make a motion if nobody has anything else. Do any other commissioners have anything?
No, I'm good.
Go ahead, Jason.
This is Commissioner Hanson. I make a motion that we recommend to City Council approval on item 5A.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson, this is yours, not a city council, so
This is
I
our
didn't
call,
mean to
Jason.
interrupt you, but go
So
back.
we-
This is approval of the planning commission.
Okay. This is Commissioner Hanson. I make a motion that we approve item C-20-05, a request for conditional use permit to establish a motor vehicle impound business yard business in an I-2 zoning district located at 1385 East Hillcrest Drive. The applicant is Get Hooked Towing / Jeremy Johnson. Subject to the conditions and findings on our staff report.
Commissioner Hawley, I second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, second by Commissioner Hawley for the conditional use permit. Those in favor, Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry,
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfu.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Just get your license in there to the city. You can move forward on it.
Perfect. So I just need to take my, just run in there in the morning and get an updated on my business license, correct?
Yeah, and on the state impound license.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I appreciate it, gentlemen. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck on your efforts.
I appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
All right. Item 6A is a plat amendment. This is also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation of City Council for the Brio Phase 3E, 3F, and 3G preliminary plat amendment located at approximately Sunstone Way and Via Modelo. The purpose of the amendment is to change phasing and add 3G. The applicant is Cole West.
Thank you. As stated, applicant requests an approval of the amended preliminary plat. The reason for this amendment request is to add another phase 3G, to this overall area. Phases 3E and 3F are being redesigned from 2 separate phases into 3 separate phases. Due to the significant change of the new alignments that are being made, staff felt that it would be appropriate to have the preliminary plat amended to keep things as clean as possible for final platting of the area. Staff reviewed the proposed amended preliminary plat, finds it conforms to the PCD, which is the Brio development. The subdivisions also remain in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of the city. Staff therefore is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the amended preliminary plat for the Brio 3E, 3F, and now 3G subdivisions onto the City Council based on the original findings and subject to the original conditions of the approved preliminary plat back on May 8th of 2019. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have as it relates to this amended preliminary plat. Again, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see 3G is these set of townhomes down here. And let me just kind of get my pencil so I can help you kind of see that. So here's 3G, which basically takes in this cul-de-sac right here that runs by it. 3E is over here on the east boundary. And then 3F is over in this area on the west. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have, but again, it's just a phasing boundary issue, adding another phase. So So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the commissioners might have on this preliminary plat amendment.
So they didn't change the densities at all. All they did is just add a phase to.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So 3G was not previously 3E.
No, the townhomes were one of those. They were 3F or 3E, and then the single platted, lots was 3F. So now they're kind of breaking it up in there to get this whole new phase along here. And so some of them actually have some platted single lots along with the townhomes, and then they wanted to push this 3G off because they're kind of worried about this product, this townhome, the 2-story versions of it not selling because for some reason, a lot of retired people don't like stairs. I don't get it, but so that kind of changed their marketing of that. I know Commissioner Hanson knows Henry knows what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do too.
So I had to throw that out there. Sorry.
Yeah, we appreciate the smart aleck,
Well, that's basically what's here. It was just enough change that I wanted to just amend the preliminary plat. So.
Drew, this is Commissioner Hawley. Under your conditions, you've got all the way down through 13 rather than the standard 5. Is there anything in those 13 we should be specifically aware?
Actually, on preliminary plats, the standard is 11.
Okay.
Normal ones.
So
yeah, 12 and 13. These were kind of brought. I don't mind pointing them out if you want me to read them real quick. Number 12 is the possible erosion area on the east side of the subdivision of 3F be addressed on a plan and submitted to staff. This can be worked out through construction drawings, and I'll have Brandon jump on that in a minute. Number 13, the intersection of Sunstone Way and Red Coral Court will be required to be built during phases 3F during that. And these were both, I think 12 was actually added by one of your new city councilmen who used to be your chairperson. Commissioner Coates had number 12 put in. And then I think Public Works wanted number 13 to be on there. Brandon, are both those already taken care of? Do you know?
They are.
Which I thought they were. As such, it's been a while, so.
Okay.
But I still wanted to leave them on as the conditions of the approval.
Sure.
Commissioner Hawley, just so that answers that for you.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So Drew, the most of the lots in phase 3E are already established. I mean, they're not built on there, but there's a number of homes already down along that cul-de-sac that have been built out. So the ones that they're concerned with is at 3F up like lots 415 to 412. Is that the ones that they're doing? And then you said the other cul-de-sac above. So what?
Yeah, let me.
What are they? I mean, they're just rearranging things, right? I mean,
they're rearranging phase lines. Yes.
Yeah, so they're not doing anything different. They're just calling it something different from a phasing standpoint.
That's my full understanding. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, Drew, actually the intersection that the number 13, that's not complete yet. It will be. They're working on it right now.
Okay.
That's the only one that's not complete. They are working on that and the erosion hazard.
Okay. Yeah, I saw them put in a big pipe that runs down off of that hill just the other day.
Yep.
I think it's this one right down here, right? They just buried that under the ground.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
Drew, how close is Brio to being finished, built out completely?
My guesstimation, I'd say it's probably at least 75%.
Okay.
They're probably going to be bringing in a PCD amendment though in the next couple of weeks. They're wanting to change that north end of the development a little bit. They had townhomes on there, and again, these townhomes they built right here really aren't selling, so they want to come back and offer you a different, like a new patio home style, and that'll be becoming for you within the next month or two.
Okay.
But again, it's about 75%, I think, maybe 70 at the least, 75 at the most being done. The entire development.
Now that it's that far along, is the city happy with the way that it's been built out? Like, are there things looking back we should have done different with them, or are they continuing to just kind of fire on all cylinders that it's been a great project and it continues to be?
I can't believe you asked me that question to give an answer on national TV.
Yeah.
Well, before I even said it, I thought this probably isn't the right time to ask the question.
Oh, it's actually not a bad question. Like with every development, if you know, Brio's been through quite a few amendments over the years. For a short of a time, it's probably had just as many, if not more, than the other PCDs we've had in the city. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Some of the residents haven't appreciated it because it changed from what they bought into. You know, we'll just be honest. That's like normal things we get. You know that in your own Stookie Farms.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you have the same kind of feelings and about those amendments. But for the most part, I think the project's actually been a good project. I like how most of it has turned out. So, you know, I would probably put it more on a higher, you know, positive kind of feedback.
Yeah.
And not less positive.
I asked because there are a lot of changes. I feel like I see this in my time more than any of them for sure. And I think it's great when I go out there. I don't notice the negatives to it. And if they're talking about changing it again in the future, this made me wonder how people are receiving that.
Well, we learned this is actually one of the developments that helped us do what we do now in PCDs. We make them either do a newsletter or hold a meeting.
Yeah.
And we have to see that newsletter goes out to every owner so that we aren't the ones answering all the questions when an amendment comes through, that they've already taken care of that and that they're available to answer those questions versus Kathy having to, you know, listen to everyone on her phone or in her emails. And so I thank Brio for allowing us to find a way to do that. So there's been some good things that have come of, you know, the number of changes. So, but again, the market has changed a lot in the last couple of years as well. So.
Yeah. All right, thanks. I have nothing else.
I think this is Commissioner Musso. I think what you're stating though is right from the standpoint that I think they are realizing that marketing those townhomes is not a good idea. And if they're going to change it, they will be changing more to what they've already have established and what they've sold the heck out of. Because they've done a good job of selling that stuff out there.
It's moved faster than any of our other PCDs
by far.
It really has sold out very fast. And that tells you something.
Yeah, it's by far it's sold out. But that one cul-de-sac is just kind of their dog, you know, it's down along that edge.
Yeah.
So.
See, that's kind of why I was asking also is if we're talking about townhomes in other parts of the city as possibility future development, and these aren't selling, is it just because of where they're at, or is it because we don't have a market for townhomes?
It's who they're marketing to. Now you have to know Brio, when they came about, they're marketing out again away from here. We're talking they market California, Nevada, back east. They're hitting retirees.
Okay.
It's who their main plug is they're going after. So they're out in all those retired magazines. They're out in all those avenues for retirees. That's why, you know, otherwise I'm selling townhomes like mad in the city, just not here because the people they market to aren't in the market for townhomes because 90% of their clientele are retirees.
Now, I just want to confirm this. I think I know the answer, but I want to ask this to make sure. There's not an age restriction on these townhomes. Is that correct?
Correct.
So even though there's not an age restriction and we're selling townhomes everywhere else, they're still not selling here because they're not marketing to them. But if they're available, okay, I understand.
Some of the stuff
pricing is higher. Their
Exactly.
pricing is higher because of what they put in them.
That's
one of the big differences. A lot of the townhomes we're selling around here are not in this price value. These ones are very nice. If you go walk through it, they're really nice, but they're hitting a market of people that have a little bit higher income, and that's why they're sitting.
Okay.
And the other thing is that they have to accommodate for that amenity package that they put in there. They spent like $12 million when they put that clubhouse and the pool and that stuff in. So they have to they have to distribute that across, however many lots that they're doing. So that just adds to the cost of the product, as Drew was saying.
Yeah.
So, there is no, as far as I know, there's no age restriction. I've done a lot of appraisals up there, but it's just that, old people don't want stairs. That's just a fact of life,
Yeah.
and most of us resemble that remark, except for Jason Smith,
So there really is no bearing whatsoever on townhomes in relation to this not selling around the city.
Yeah, I don't think there is. Unfortunately, I mean, townhomes have become the entry-level housing for everywhere, and that's a shame. But that's the fact of life right at the moment. That's just what we've evolved into having.
Well, they're great rentals too. I have a couple myself, and they're great rentals. There may be a restriction, Jason, that these can't be rentals, and therefore, as investment properties. And it's like Drew says, now they're not investment properties. The old people don't want them for the reasons we've talked about. So they're really targeting the wrong market with this product, and the HOAs are high out there too. So
yeah. So that's probably the reason somebody that's looking for a townhome is not coming there, because it's just simply too expensive.
Yep.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Does the applicant have any comments?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Drake Howell and Stephen Whitehead here with Cole West Home, representing the applicant. Appreciate the discussion. I'm glad to hear Drew's rating, his grade that he gave us on a higher positive. I think I got a passing grade, I hope. And we're certainly doing what we can to, as he just mentioned, a market. And boy, we cannot build lots fast enough up to Brio. I don't know what this whole COVID thing has turned on, but we have effectively been having about a sell a day for the last 3 months that are just selling up a storm and just doing really well. So just one note, I think it was interesting how the discussion all occurred about why or why not these towns are succeeding or not succeeding at Brio. I think one element just to throw out there to the whole age discussion is that our marketing is age targeted. And so I think everyone knows that Brio has that age target. There's no hard and fast, as someone pointed out a minute ago, there's no restrictions in the rules and the CC&Rs, but we're certainly targeting that market. And so to the point about the 2 stories, it's just not something that the age target demographic wants. It's mainly something, probably someone that's still kind of in their prime working years may want to look at for a second home, that investment idea that one of the commissioners brought up. So anyway, that's our sense, is that it's not a perfect fit for our age target. So that said, on the matter at hand, just to be abundantly clear, everything that is shown as far as lots and attached building pads in the 3 phases, 3E, 3F, and 3G, we're all in their same configuration that you see today. All we're doing is, instead of having a 3E phase and a 3F phase, that 3F included the 12 single family lots on the western side of Sunstone Road there, and the 14 attached lots down Red Coral Court. All we're doing is carving out a phase around those attached products along Red Coral Court. Everything else is the same. There's no change in anything since the original preliminary plat was approved. And we're doing that for the reasons that Drew just went through and that we just discussed. So we appreciate any more questions that you might have. We're happy to address them, and we request your approval.
Okay, great. This is a public hearing. Do we have any public comments on?
There are no public comments on this item.
Okay, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Henry and a second by Commissioner Fitzunfu. In favor, Commissioner Henry. Commissioner Fitzunfu.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed unanimously. Further discussion, questions for staff or the applicant, and or a motion at this time?
Question for Drew. It's up to us to approve this, right? This doesn't go, I don't see where it goes to the city council.
No, this does go to city council.
Oh, it does, okay.
Yep.
This is Commissioner Hawley. I'd like to make a motion that this commission approve. I lost the item. I pulled it.
Again, you want to recommend approval.
Recommended.
Yeah, we recommend approval to the city council.
6A.
Preliminary
6A.
plat, amended preliminary plat, Brio 3E, 3F, and now 3G subdivision. Oh, I see it. To the city council based on the original findings, subject to the original conditions of the approved preliminary plat of May 8th, 2019, subject to the conditions and findings below.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hawley and a second by Commissioner Henry. In favor, Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzunfu.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Item 7A, this is a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council for Redwater's POD 2 preliminary plat located at approximately 2800 East Country Way. The applicant is Mellon LLC.
Thank you. As stated, applicant's requesting of a preliminary plat for the Redwater's Pod 2 subdivision. The applicant is proposing 113 lots and the area coverage is 33.86 acres. The zoning designation at this particular planned subdivision is the Planned Unit Development Residential, or referred to as the PUDR. The surrounding zoning is open space to the south, PUD to the north and west, and R18 to the east. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this particular location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of this preliminary plat that's on your screen in the exhibit. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Redwater's Pod 2 subdivision onto the City Council, and that's based on the findings, subject to the conditions. And again, the first 11 are standard. Number 12 is that the specific conditions of the approved PUDR zoning of this project will be followed. Now, that's a PUD you just approved, was approved by the city here recently. And so they're just following up with their preliminary plat after that zoning approval just several weeks back. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
So this is the PUD that we had a lengthy discussion on the setbacks and that was resolved. Correct?
That is correct. Yep.
And then I know that it was talked about, and I know there's a time frame. There is a park on the, I'll call it south because it's at the bottom of the page, right? That's being left off of this currently.
Yeah, it's down where the road schematic is. That's kind of where the park lies.
And it's included in at a later phase is when, or has that been dedicated to the city?
Well, it's coming in phases. As each pod develops out, more of the park gets developed.
Okay,
this pod 2 is responsible for adding extra parking and the bathrooms.
Okay, is it being dedicated to the city once it's completed?
Yes.
Or I'm just trying to remember. I'm just trying to remember for myself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. It'll be turned over to us once completed. Yes.
But it does in phases as they move along in the pod.
Yes.
There's an agreement.
That's also the detention area for this area out here as well, Jason.
Okay.
I have one other condition, Drew, that didn't get put on here. That didn't make it. We still do not have approval to work inside that 100-year flood plain line. So
Okay.
Was it? Okay, is that this line
you can see it going across right
right
there.
through here? Yeah, okay.
We still don't have approval at this point right now. So I just want to put that condition on there as well.
This line right here, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay, so we want to put on there, commissioners, that no final plating can occur in the 100-year area till that's been taken care of with a LOMAR. It's going to be a LOMAR, Brandon, correct? Not a CLOMAR?
Yep, LOMAR approval and FEMA.
Okay. So I would just add that as a 13th condition, commissioners, that no plating for final plat can occur on that. I guess it's directional would be east, southeast, Brandon, what?
South and east, yeah.
South, okay, southeast of the subdivision.
So I have a question. And so how does that affect, can they do any of the work on the other parts of the phase? I mean, can they pave roads and stuff? They just can't do anything in the floodplain area? How does that work?
You're right. You answered it kind of with your own question.
Okay.
Everything up here on the north side,
Uh-huh.
they can proceed. Down here, no.
Okay. Because that cuts out, I'm just guessing probably close to 30 lots or so,
Yeah.
maybe more. Okay.
Where are we on the process of, has it been it's been submitted to FEMA, the city's reviewed it, correct? And
There's a floodplain development agreement out there on a portion of it. So I know we can do that with portions of this as well if we, for the work. I just want to bring that up that, for the final plat stuff until we get this done. I know we'll probably beat that with the approval process. I just want to put it out there.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
This is Commissioner Hanson, just from my own knowledge, because this is going to be in the 100-year floodplain, do they do something? Is it just a requirement they do something to mitigate that in case that flood never does come, or is there actually going to be a continued risk that these will all be in that floodplain if we had that 100-year flood?
Well, this application that is in will actually take it out of the floodplain and put
So
it.
they'll do something to mitigate that?
Yeah, so there will be some mitigation that's being done.
Okay.
And some
Well, Commissioner, where I put that blue area, that kind of helped alleviate some of that, if not most of it. There's been a big rock retaining, I can't remember what it's called, but because it's just skipping my mind right now. Erosion, this got built up in here, which helped a lot of that area. And it is higher in elevation. They just have to go through the process of getting it out of the stated elevation. If that helps.
When I was out there looking at it and I saw where the blue area that you're talking about, so the assumption is that the 100-year flood's not going to go above that.
Yeah, so basically mostly probably what's being done is from an engineering standpoint, is they're doing cross sections in the river that demonstrate that the existing river, the cross section of the existing river is going to stop at where that blue line is, approximately. And so they just have to show that that's the case and that it's not doing anything people upstream or downstream if they are doing any work inside there. And so that's being reviewed by engineers that have a lot higher pay grade than I am and everything. So
there's also some sediment.
Take a lot more time than I do.
There'll be some sediment removal in certain portions of the river as well.
Yeah, how will they, Brandon, this is Commissioner Hawley, how will they control sediment coming down towards Sullivan Park then?
There'll be some sediment removal that will take place with the permit once it's issued, and just in certain spots. But they're in the process of working through it right now, the permitting. And
how does that continue though? They remove it initially, but then it builds up again.
it'll just be a process when it builds up. You know, it's always a process that keeps happening. It evolves. It could be yearly. It could be 2 times a year. I don't know. It depends on the buildup we get.
And who has to do that? The city?
Most of the time we put the jobs out. Yeah, that's correct. We just did the one on the side of the bridge.
Coalition of the cities in the county that go and evaluate the river every year and pick projects out that need to be done. And so ever since 2005 that was created, and there's a fund that goes into that, and it's to manage the river. It's
okay. That's what that was really where I was headed. Whose dime is that? But there's a state fund. Is that what I understand?
There's federal monies and state funds, and then there's some local monies that are put into that to maintain that.
Does some of the impact fees go in there, Drew? To maintain that?
I don't think so.
No impact fee that I know of. We just did a job on the east side of the river, right where Drew drew that blue line.
Right.
We just did a sediment removal out of there last year.
Okay, good.
They do.
Thank you, Jason and Brandon, for that explanation.
Drew, where does the liability lie if 15 years from now there's some massive flood that wipes out some of these houses? Who has that liability?
They'll come after you, the planning commissioners, even though you may be retired.
That's right. That's what I wanted to cover right there.
Actually, they don't. When FEMA puts it up, that means FEMA, Brandon, stop me if I'm not speaking right, but if FEMA gives a LOMAR, FEMA's, it falls under the federal emergency management, stuff. So it goes back under them, under a federal thing.
Yeah, the answer is always going to be, we have no liability whatsoever on them. But again, that's why we do have FEMA and federal flood insurance that's made available. And as a city, I think in the last few years, we've been very, we've tried to put a lot of word out as we come through, especially some of our rain seasons that we have, about people, how they can get flood insurance, what they're eligible for. So we make an effort to do that. But in terms of whether or not we're liable, not so much.
Okay.
But they will be required to have flood insurance if they're on the wrong side of that line, right?
Correct.
But we're not going to let them build on the wrong side of that line in this case.
Right.
But yes, if we did allow that under some circumstances, they would be required to have flood. In fact, their mortgager would absolutely make sure of it.
Yeah, the lines are that's what they're trying to do, is change the lines. So they won't be inside that 100-year floodplain.
Is there something that people that buy those homes are going to have to sign indicating that they're aware that, this is taking place, that they were at one point, or is it just a moot point?
Once the line's moved, it's moved. And so there
nothing signed.
The information is the river's right there.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Does the applicant have anything to add to the comment at this point?
This is Reed Scow for the applicant. I think Drew did an awesome job and it's been some great discussion, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions at this time for the applicant? If not, this is a public hearing. Do we have any public comment?
There are no public comments at this time.
There's no public comments, so we will, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Was that Commissioner Hanson that said so moved?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Second.
And second by Commissioner Hawley. I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, second by Commissioner Hawley to close the public hearing. In favor, Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Further discussion, questions or a motion on the preliminary plat of this?
This is Commissioner Hawley. I just have a quick question for Brandon. So explain to me, please, Brandon, what they do with those lots on the other side of that line. They build those up, or they add additional berms to rechannel any high water?
So they're moving the floodplain line through FEMA, through
Right.
a letter of map revision. Am I saying this right, Jason?
Yes.
And so
they
that
just
line,
move the line
from where it's at to a new line and take it completely out of that floodplain.
So the engineer is demonstrating that the floodplain line, the 100-year flood would not go to that level. So when maps are created, they're creating for miles at a time.
right?
And in some cases, their line is a little bit off. They're also doing they're probably doing some mitigation work along as well. And that's like there's some sediment removal. There's some things that they're doing as well that will help demonstrate that line is in the wrong location.
Okay.
And in this case, you can kind of see it. It does. You can't see where the river has been historically, and this is up a little bit above that. So they have to show and demonstrate that. It has to be reviewed by the floodplain administrator locally, and then it goes to FEMA, and they review it to verify that they concur with the information given. It's quite a process. There's usually quite a few questions that are asked and returned, and it goes back and forth for a little while, and they'll adjust that line. So in the event that, based on Brandon's condition, in the event that FEMA denies that and says no, they're completely wrong, I don't foresee that in this case. But if they said that, the condition would stop that preliminary plat, and they'd have to redo a portion of it.
They'd lose all those lots. Wow. Okay. Great explanation, Jason. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
Any other question and or motion?
This is Commissioner Hanson. If there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion that we recommend for approval to City Council. I think this is item 6A, is that right?
7A.
7A, the preliminary plat approval for the Redwater's Pod 2 subdivision located approximately 2800 East Country Way, applicant Bush and Gudgel, subject to the conditions and conditions outlined on our staff report. One additional condition to be added is that no final platting take place prior to an approved Lomar and FEMA study that is being done southeast of the subdivision. Did I get that right?
Sounds good to me. It's Commissioner Hawley. I second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson and a second by Commissioner Hawley. In favor, Commissioner Hanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley?
Aye.
Commissioner Henry? And Commissioner Fitzonfu?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll
Hey,
now-
everybody.
You bet. Thanks, Reed. Motion, let's see, item 8A is a zone change. This is a public hearing for consideration or recommendation to City Council. Zone change request Z-20-13 to change from R3 multifamily residential to C2 service commercial located at approximately 300 East Telegraph. The applicant is Brandon and Tressa Wood.
Thank you. As stated, the applicant's request and approval of the zone change of approximately 0.38 acres. The requested change is from, as stated, the current zoning of multifamily residential R3 zoning to a proposed community commercial C2 zoning designation. The C2 request is for the purpose of developing the 0.38 acres into a commercial project called the Woods Drink Shop. This particular location has a general plan use designation of historic downtown commercial. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is R3 to the north and east, C2 to the west, and mobile home, which is across the street of Telegraph on the south. Staff's only concern with the proposed zone change is being to meet access management requirements as per city standards. If the applicant can work out those issues with the Public Works Department, then the zone change request should be considered. Staff would therefore like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of Z-20-13 for the zone change request from multiple family residential R3 to the proposed community commercial C2 zoning designation onto the City Council. And that's based on the findings that you find in your report below. Do have one condition, which is odd because we normally don't, but I am going to throw one on. It's just because of that access that I referenced before. Will have to be again approved through the Public Works access management requirements. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on this particular proposal.
As I looked at that, Drew, that's just the one home that's on the corner, isn't it?
Correct. I'm going to pull up the city map here, so just bear with me. Don't get car sick as we pull across the city here. I tend to have that happen to me quite often.
It's that little brick.
I think it's actually 2 lots.
It is. Well, it's confusing. The county never combined them. If you read the legal description, it says lots 1 and 2 of the subdivision, which is strange. They should have just dropped, but it does appear, I mean, this is what I was just looking at this with our county. It is both these lots, even though the legal description calls them both out as, that is the legal description for the ownership, is lots 1 and 2 of the subdivision, which is strangest legal description.
Well, and it has 2 separate tax ID numbers.
It doesn't, it's the same one.
Oh, is it? Okay, because I was looking at it earlier and I thought it was, because I saw the lot lines and I thought it was 2 separate tax IDs on the plat.
If you pull up the legal description, it's both a W under 1, but it refers back to the legal description of lots 1 and 2.
Okay.
It's strange. They should have just combined the 2, eliminated the 1 lot, the line in between. But it's this right here, these 2 that you can see. In fact, if you drove by in the last day or 2, I think the house is down.
It's gone.
It's been raised.
Yeah, it's raised.
So I have a question about your condition. The access management, if I remember right, I don't know if there's really a possibility that it truly could function in the access management. You might be able to get a right in, right out is about all you could get on, on Telegraph and on 300. At the same time, I guess my concern is that it is a single lot. So is there some reason that we would have to provide some access to it, I would imagine, because it's existing. I know the use is changing, but
I think the biggest thing was that we do not have a traffic study right now. And if you look at our access management on the major collector in the commercial zone for a ride in, ride out, they have to be at least 250 feet from that intersection. And so it's not quite there. You're right, there is an access there, and there's one on 300. We know that we can't deny them, the access points, but we just want to see if we can get it as far away from that as we can, and have like maybe a ride in, ride out, if that's all we can do.
And me personally, I think that I would be, I see we want to make those as far out as possible, but my biggest thing with a drink shop is stacking, because I don't know if you've ever seen any of the drink shops show up, but they seem to stack 40 cars deep, and the more we can get stacked in that lot would be probably as important as getting the access in and out.
That's what we were looking at too. The plan that they gave us would come in and make a circular around the building, their window and out. You know, so if we'll work with them. We just want to be able to have that condition that we're not shutting them clear off.
So it'd be really helpful if we had a plan as to where they were going to put the building and how big the building was going to be. Because is it strictly going to be a drive-through building, or are they going to require parking for people to come inside and sit down? Because as an example, I was down in St. George today, down on River Road where Fizz is. And Fizz, they wrap around the building, but then it wraps out onto the street, just like this would onto 300 East. And then it sometimes wraps onto River Road. So, I mean, you can't do that. You know, there's just not enough room there. You especially can't go down on the Telegraph and be safe.
Commissioner Drew's bringing up the letter from Bush and Gudgel. That is exactly their plan. They want to have outdoor seating, park, come in, order a drink, sit outside, enjoy your drink. Yeah, that's exactly what they want to do.
But then what's the parking requirements? How big's the building going to be, and how much parking do you require? Because you're going to have driveway all the way through that whole parcel, practically. Or at least, like what Jason was saying. I mean, I'm friends with the people who own Fizz, and that just seems to be the biggest issue you have is you have people stacked up. I mean, how many times have we driven by Swig and there's 30 cars lined up at Swig? And I mean, I hope that these guys are as busy and as profitable as those guys are, but I'm really concerned with where are you going to put the cars, and how's that building going to look so that you can put those cars around it.
Well, I share your concern, you and Jason both. I trust Brandon and Drew and our buildings department to make the right decisions.
Representatives on the line if we'd like to ask them these questions.
But before we get to him, let me just make a comment. We're looking at a zone change,
right,
rather than a preliminary plat.
And that was comment I wanted to make too, is I think we need to, I think these are great questions. I think we also need to say, is this corner, as a planning commission, are we looking at this corner as saying, yeah, it really should be townhomes, or, an R3 type development, or, this intersection makes more sense for commercial.
On the planning side, it makes more sense as commercial. There's absolutely no doubt about that. It's just,
that's the most important part there.
Yeah. What are you going to do with it? That's going to be the question.
Now let's when they get to commercial and they have a site plan, then we can really start putting those questions. I'm glad that we let them know and that they're aware that, look, there's some access issues here that I'm sure they can see, and I'm sure that we're all aware of. We need to do our best to make this access compatible the best we can, and eliminate stacking on Telegraph or on 300 where cars are at complete stops out on the road, to our best ability and their best ability.
The commissioners, if I may, you will, if this zone change goes through onto the city council and they approve it, it does have to come back for you folks to get a conditional use permit approval. Right. And then that's where you will see the building, the parking, their business model of some sort of what their plan is, how it meets with our standards in parking, how it meets our standards in seating, how it meets our standards in ingress and egress. So those will all be addressed. I just wanted it brought out because sometimes if you don't put it in this stage, you get farther down, they say, well, if I would have known that then, I may have not, that's the only reason I'm putting that on there, just so, and we have Brandon's talked to the applicants about it. We've both told them our biggest issues is getting in and out. and how it's going to affect the traffic on 300 and Telegraph currently. So they're aware of that. The engineer has his work to do. If it gets through the zoning, you know, they're going to have to really, whatever the traffic, you know, engineer part's going to be, we'll work all those things out. But again, we're just wanting to see, does the commissioners, do the council think this is a viable commercial corner? And try to keep it down to that level maybe before we move on, if that's okay.
Understand.
This is Commissioner Hanson. As I was looking at that lot yesterday, I didn't know where the lot line was, obviously, but I thought to myself how small it was and how are they going to fit this? And I understand what you just said, Drew, and I can appreciate that. My mind is telling me, why would I approve something to have the zone change where it might not work? I guess it relies on how comfortable you are as the city staff that you can get this figured out with the developer. And if there's a yes from you guys, then all right, then that's no problem. But wouldn't it be odd if we approve something like this, the zone change, and then it didn't work out? Well, then the whole zone just changed, and now we're going to run into a problem for a while trying to figure out how to get people in and out of there, no matter what the development is. Am I wrong? Am I thinking?
No, you're not wrong. What would happen is you'd have another zone change.
What it was?
6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road, probably.
But I don't think that access issue changes no matter what you put there. You still have an access issue no matter
Right.
what.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I just gave you perspective. If you look on the map, I gave you a red star, and that's Helen, you know, St. Helens restaurant.
Yeah.
Even when you add their little parking and you think about the size, you could take this and throw it on here and you have fairly the same amount of area. And this is a business that's fairly successful right now. Parking has always been because people have to walk across the street, but things are running okay, I guess is the best way to say it down here.
Yeah.
And yet you look, when I look at comparison of square footage, it's not that much different. So, which is a full-blown restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my vote's going to go with expecting and hoping that I'm going to side with the staff that you guys can figure out a resolution to this, but I look at them as completely different. Like 300 is a lot different than Village Way.
Oh, absolutely.
With traffic, and you know that as well. So for me, it all comes down to the cart before the horse almost, because if I saw a building and how it's going to work, which I know is not appropriate at this time, that would help me understand it a little better. Because right now I'm just winging the prayer that something will be settled according to staff that'll be okay with the city. Gosh, it just seems so tiny. I mean, I would love it, but the last thing I would want is everything we've already talked about, is having some cars stopped on Telegraph or 300 for any reason at any time coming in and out of there, because there easily could be an accident.
This is Commissioner Hawley. Here again, I agree with Jason, and that was my thought. What if we do approve this zone change, and then this Woods Drink Shop doesn't work? But Drew, you answered that question. We come back and change it back to something else, or change it from that to something else. So these are all good points, but I go back to what I said. I trust Brandon and I trust Drew to make the right decisions and make sure this thing works. And if it doesn't, I trust that they'll bring it back to us.
Yep, I would agree.
Most definitely.
I'm kind of anxiously excited to see what comes back, because if it was any other way, I'd go, I don't think so. But I get it.
Does the applicant have anything to add on now that we've discussed it a little bit?
This is Reed Scow again for the applicant. This has been some great conversations, and I appreciate staff immensely because they've given me a lot of heads up. We've got our conditional use permit is ready to come into the city as soon as we get through this zone change. And we have engaged a traffic engineer that's writing the report, putting the finishing touches on it. We have eliminated the access off of Telegraph, which helped tremendously, and we've moved the other access as far north as we could, and trying to make everything work. It's, you go back to Drew's point a little bit. We have a full working restaurant over there, we're talking 800 square foot building is all we're looking at for the drink shop. And they'll have some seating and some minor stuff and a lot of outside. So there's a lot of room to park stack cars. And we actually have parking stalls right now for, the number in my head runs 12. And it is a lot of parking, but comes back to, if you do agree that this is a good area for C2, and if for some reason the drink shop may or may not work, anything within that C2 would have to be approved and brought back in. So we think it's a great location for commercial. And right now, preliminarily, we're down to the nuts and bolts on the CUP. Everything is looking like it's going to work very well. I've talked extensively with the owners, and they're very excited to have this opportunity. They've lived a long time in southern Utah and in Washington City. They live right down the street. They're so excited to be able to live and work in the area, and they want a great little area like they remember to walk down with your family and get your favorite dirty Dr. Pepper. And they're very excited, and we believe that this is a great location for it, and everything's kind of lining up, and we're really excited to move forward.
Reed, did you just
Commissioner Hawley, thank you for that. Sounds to me like you're so close to the CUP and your parking stalls. Can you tell the commission the approximate location of this small building on that lot at this time?
Well, I can. It's going, there's a lane far as east you can go, and then the building sets right there. It's almost dead center, about 13, 14, 15, 16 feet off that edge, off the right edge, about right in the middle. But again, it's like 25 by 40 square feet, or 25 by 40. I mean, it's very small.
Okay, thank you.
And we've already done auto turn on everything. You can get a truck in there and everything else. That's a little bit too far west, Drew. It goes to the east, and the long ways is north to south.
Reed, this is Commissioner Hanson. Did you say you eliminated the in and out on Telegraph?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there.
So you come in on 300, and you kind of swoop to the right towards Telegraph, and you get into the ordering line. You order really early, and there's two places to order to help speed up. I mean, we've sat down at Swig and a couple other places and kind of watch how they run their business and try to figure out how to get traffic through quickly. And it comes around, and then you order and you pick up on the far side of your window, and then you turn back out and you're out. And you can park a lot of cars in there. You can park there's a lot of stacking that goes on.
So if there's a parking issue, it looks to me like it would be leaving, turning left on 300 East.
If there is, yes.
Because if that light's red and already backs up on its own without this project, that would be the issue, I guess. Okay.
And could turn right, or you could go straight across and then right again. Yeah, you'd be coming out and turning and going east on Telegraph, I think would be probably your worst, if there is one.
Okay. Thank you.
Getting pretty good with that, Drew.
Okay, so I'm trying to envision other places similar to this. Okay, so if you guys are all familiar with Kentucky Fried Chicken, downtown on the boulevard. So you have the boulevard, which would be the equivalent of Telegraph. That side street that Kentucky Fried Chicken's on is not as busy as 300 probably. But, this would be a better configuration than that one. There was another one that I thought of and it just dropped off my head. But it was another corner. The 3/10 or 0.38 acres is pretty good size, actually. It's not bad. It's just a matter of, and where he's planning that building, it's probably feasible that they could stack 15 cars in there. And if they do a double line like the McDonald's do, where you have two ordering lines that funnel down into one, and then you go through the drive-through, that would help your stacking problem also, because you could put double wide through the middle of your lot. So where he's describing it, it seems really feasible to me. And like I said, I think the way this lot's configured, it should be C2. It should be a commercial lot, in all honesty, because you're not going to put residential in there.
Here again, you're right, Brian. Here again, we're just talking zone change.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It should be C2.
Yeah, and all of this makes sense. The only concern I have now is that people are going to park and walk through the queue or through the stack to get to the building. They're going to be walking through traffic to get to the building to sit down on the patio. So, once it comes back to us, that's the one I'm going to be looking at, keeping the pedestrians safe.
The parking actually is almost right in front of the building, and there's going to be about 12 stalls right there, so you can park. People could park there and walk in order, or you have the drive-through that comes around and plugs back in. So you can park, and you're right. I mean, I just did the math, and you got almost 7,000 square feet here, and we're talking 800 for the building. And so there's a lot that's going on in this area.
Yeah.
I don't have, Commissioner Hanson, my last comment is my issue isn't with today, meaning the property change or the change of the zoning. And my issue isn't getting the cars in there where they park. My issue is where they're leaving. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's not for today.
This is a public hearing. Do we have any public comment?
Tara?
Commissioner Smith, this is Denise. There are no public comments for this item.
Okay, no public comment.
Correct.
All right, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Hawley, so moved.
Commissioner Hanson, second it.
Motion by Commissioner Hawley, second by Commissioner Hanson. In favor, Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry,
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzumfu.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Further discussion and or a motion on the zone change.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the city council of Z-20-13-A, a request to rezone approximately 0.38 acres located at approximately the northeast corner of Telegraph Road and 300 East from the current multifamily residential R-3 zoning to the proposed community commercial C-2 zoning designation with recommendations, or excuse me, with findings and conditions as listed.
Commissioner Hanson, I second that.
Motion second. In favor, Commissioner Henry,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzumfu,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone, and just go ahead and take the rest of the night off.
Thank you for that.
Any discussion or comments for commission from staff or anyone? Or the commission? Announcements?
Just so you guys know, I got two things real quick. There will not be a meeting on the 19th, 2 weeks. That way I won't feel guilty about being on my vacation. My other announcement, that's the week I'll be gone. Also, I don't know if many of you heard, but our city manager has put in his resignation. Mr. Carter will be moving on to SUU. I don't know if all of you had heard that or not, but we're trying to get used to that still. And just passing that on for you good folks.
His going away open house is on the 18th, is that correct?
That's what I understood, yeah.
Four
A
to
week
six
gone.
is what,
So what are you guys doing in the city that's causing the council people and the city manager both to leave within 2 weeks of each other? Are you guys that hard to work with?
No comment. Actually, they're both job-related changes. So,
Commissioner, the planning commission had to realize that on his exit interview, the city manager said something about just disagreeable planning commission members and their attitudes about the city. But I'm sure it didn't mean you.
that was just me. That was me.
Yeah, no, I don't got that though.
Which city councilman left, Brian?
Isn't it, who was it? Clough.
Daniel Clough.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I remember now. Yeah. Well, Roger Carter is in our ward with Rick Henry and I in the 14, Washington Fields 14. And he has had some slings and arrows for sure. But Roger Carter is a good man, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Amen. There's not anything else I can say. He's an incredible gentleman.
Yep, I think.
Great job for sure.
Commissioners, I hope you don't mind it. I think Drew and I probably will pass that on because irrespective of how comfortable a person is and what they do and what their career is, I think that's always something nice to hear from the people who have no vested interest in keeping their jobs for saying it. So I think that Drew and I probably will take note to pass it along to Mr. Carter.
I wish you would, Jeff. Yes, thank you, please.
I also wish you would. Thank you, Jeff.
I agree.
Just for my mind, there's no meeting on the 19th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So do we meet some other time?
You won't meet until September 2nd after that.
Okay. So we get to go on vacation with you, kind of, sort of. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, enjoy yourself.
Have a good time, Drew.
Thank you.
You deserve it, Drew. You guys, you and Brandon both are, and Jeff, you guys are doing a really good job as a resident of the city of Washington. I appreciate you guys so much. You're just, Chief, Matt, doing, yeah, just good people doing a great job. I appreciate you.
I think I'd have to second that motion.
Anything else come before the commission? If not, we can motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? If you're opposed, you can stay as long as you want.
Good night.
Thank you for the evening.
Good night, everybody. Good job. Thank you.